Hey, 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 how you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Tarot Flow Show. The Tarot Flow Show where synchronicity is the star, and I'm your host, Alison Pickering, and I am so happy, as usual, to be here with my co-host from Scandinavia, the wonderful, fabulous Kefri Skarabus. Welcome, Kefri, to the Tarot Flow Show. Welcome back.
Thank you,
It's nice to
Alison. Thank you. Nice to see you too.
Thank you. We are on opposite sides of a big old apartment that we are hanging out in for the moment in a beautiful town called Helsingborg, Sweden, which I have the great good fortune to get to know because Kefri said, check this place out. And but even better, we have someone that I have not seen or even hardly talked to since a childhood of that we both shared in Laurel Canyon. And so as we come forward and introduce our beautiful guest today, I will say that I have such happy memories from about age 6 to 9 or 10 in Laurel Canyon on Jewett Drive. I was very good friends with Liam MALKAN. He now lives in Colorado. We haven't spoken in, oh my gosh, now that today is my 64th birthday, I'm going to say it's been over 50 years for sure, 55, maybe something like that. It's so crazy. But I want to welcome my Liam MALKAN to the stage because he's so brave. He said, let's do it. Let's do the show. And so I'm thrilled to see that he is as brave now as he was back then when we were kids, climbing all over up and down the hills and down the burnt trails and all that good stuff. Liam MALKAN, thank you for being here.
Hello, Alison. Hello, Kefri. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
I'm doing great.
Fine, thank you.
And that's a crazy story how we were friends when we were 7 and 8, maybe 9, 6,
Maybe
7,
9.
and 6, 7, and 8.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did not have a chance to grab hold of that little picture, which is two of us at 6 years old at Nash Drive and Jewett. There's a little T intersection right there where David Carradine lived up the hill, Al Gordon lived that way, and a bunch of other people who have been and gone, and but we're still around, and we're going to play with some cards today. And tell us a little bit, Liam, what experience do you have with tarot, if any, or with spiritual stuff? Because you jumped into this opportunity, and I'm so impressed. But tell us what's on your mind.
Well, I've watched the Tarot Flow Show on YouTube. You can learn a lot about tarot, and that's all I know.
That's all you know, and you're subjecting yourself to it. So more power to you. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really scared of what's going to happen.
Well, as our friend Mike Bonner says, if it's your first time, you're lucky because we're going to be gentle with you. And so this is what we're going to do today on the show, where we've had a brief introduction with Liam, and we're going to have a little tour of the major arcana, and then we'll take a look at one of the cards. That won't be our reading. That's just going to be kind of an analytical process that we're going to do, and Liam's going to pick a card, and then we'll make some connections. We'll chit chat a little bit before we jump into the reading that we're going to do, which is, because we're from Hollywood, for your consideration. We're not telling fortunes. We're not saying that this is the gospel reality. What we're doing is we're working with images, and we are considering how those images might activate our intuition. And then kind of we go along life in this kind of horizontal timeline, and we bop along our lives and we do things. And then once in a while we get a chance to kind of pause for a moment and consider a larger picture and see what might be worth thinking about in that, if anything. And hopefully that's time well spent as we think about the symbols or the possible meanings of symbols and how those might reflect in our life. And so that's what we're doing. And for any of the folks who are out there who would like to study more about this, learn more about tarot, oracles, other aspects of spiritual development, Kabbalah, and the Tree of Life, go on down to AlisonPickering.com. We're going to be having our academy starting in the fall of 2024. And we're going to have the academy. We're going to have online and live events in person, as well as travel opportunities with tours and cruises. So it's exciting what we're putting together. And I'm really glad that Liam is here today. Let's take a look at our first character here. He's the zero, he, they, she, it. It is an archetype. It's an energy that lives within our consciousness, but it's really like our spirit being willing being the key word to manifest. And that little animal doggy, our instinctive self is like, oh my God, we're so full of fear. And yet we can overcome that with our own higher aspects, shall we say. And this fool is bringing his higher aspects into his next go round. And if we take a look here into our, what we're looking at in terms of the major arcana here, let me do this. Sorry, I'm looking to get our layouts here, which is I'm having a hard time with. So we're going to take a look at here. This is the part that get cut out of the show.
Since the fool has a dog, I guess this fits, right?
That's going to be the one for you then. That's beautiful. Okay. So as we look at these major arcana, we can see in the first row of the set of 21 cards here, our Fool being our 0 card. So we'll have 22 in total. As we look across the top, we can kind of see the basic equipment that we come with and our kind of home life and early education. So all of us have a masculine and feminine polarity inside us, like that magician and high priestess. We all have had a physical mother and a father, whether we even knew them or not. That's the physical mother and father figures in the Empress and Emperor. There's a teacher, or the social mores, the kind of stuff that we're raised to think is that Hierophant figure. The Lovers are relationships. The Chariot, our ability to move beyond where we started. And then the middle row we could look at, and again, these are large oversimplifications, but it helps us to get a sense of what the meanings of these cards are getting at. These are the lessons of adulthood, the lessons of passions with your Strength card, the lessons of solitude. The Wheel of Fortune brings luck and other people's influences in and education in. Justice, of course, is the laws of the land or the laws of our own heart. The Hanged Man is how do we sit relative to the society around us, or sacrifices we may have to make, or ostracism we may suffer. The Death card is kind of like the pandemic. It's these larger forces that kind of come through and you can't do much about them except respond and handle it however you're going to handle it. And that handling then becomes the test of that Temperance card. And then as we look at the bottom row, we can see different states of consciousness. We could stay very, very materialistic and very power-oriented, like that Devil card. And then often reality will come and give an added dimension to that and maybe flip our lid, knock the lid off of our preconceptions as represented by that Tower. And then we're left kind of unto ourselves with this Star card, unto our naked self. Who are we after all in our authenticity? How do we handle this new consciousness? Because it's still so vague and moony and emotional. And that Moon card, a lot of unconsciousness and primitive feelings come up. And then there's also liberation and a connection to source where it kind of carries us and we come to it as a little child, so to speak. And then there's an awakening to a new drummer, march into a new drummer. And then that last card, the World card, is like a kind of victory. So the Magician in the beginning has 1 wand, and the World card now has 2 wands, and they've had a whole big cycle with a big laurel wreath. And those Wheel of Fortune figures who were learning in books before in each of those 4 corners are now, they have the lesson in their head. And this is now the invitation to go back again and journey again. So, Liam, did I hear you say that you wanted to take a look at the Fool since he had the doggy, and so do you?
No, because that's too obvious. I mean,
well, let's go for some subtlety. Which of these cards would you like to take a look at?
So, I think the Star, because that's who we are.
Who are we? Exactly.
Who are we? Who are we?
That's right.
That sounds interesting.
It does indeed. The Star card is a very attractive card. I'm going to have us look directly at her foot in the water, because it's not in the water, actually, it's on the water. And she has a rather stylized body that's not very specific. And so she's not really an earthly woman. She's a more angelic woman, and she's very she's unclothed, meaning that she is not needing artifice. So there's a purity about this star. And she has these two jugs, the two ewers of water, and she's pouring them both into the unconsciousness, which is the water pool, and then to our consciousness, which is the land. And then there's 5 little rivulets, and that represents our 5 senses. We've got 8 stars in total, and each of those stars has 8 points. There's a little Egyptian ibis bird back there in the background. And we're just kind of using our left brains to itemize. We're kind of itemizing what's on the card, just so we have a sense of what is built into a card. There's quite a lot of symbolism in there, down to some of the little tiny flowers that we can't see up close, but they all have meaning. Kefri, as we take a look at the star card, what are some other things to keep in mind or to consider contained in this card?
I start with something in numerology today, and this is card number 17, and 1 plus 7 is 8, and that is also the strength card. And we have also 8 stars, and they have also 8 parts shining there. So it's a lot of 8 in this card, actually hidden in this card. So it's a lot of strength in this card, and I call this card the magic of the universe, because this is the magic that is always around us, but we perhaps not can take in until we are ready for it. And that type of process is perhaps not an easy process. And also there is a secret symbol here that is connected to the Hebrew letter that stands for this card, and that is a fish hook. And a fish hook that you can lower down into your unconscious mind to fish up something, perhaps to focus on, and take you inside of yourself and discover something new. And that is, I would say, exactly what this card is doing. And it's also included in the card, because how she is pouring the water, we see that one of those vessels is making ripples on the surface of the water. So it is something more going on here, more vibration. But we can also see the vessel where she pours the water on the land. It goes back into the water, so to speak, coming back to the source. And that is also a sort of a sign to us that everything we do and everything we deliver back to the ground, so to speak, or back to life, when we are spending time in this world and this reality, will also enrich the unconscious. And that is probably a bigger unconscious that is in us, referencing C.G. Carl Gustav Jung then. And that is also in this card. And also we have the 5 streams there. That is the 5 streams of the Garden of Eden, perhaps, in the scriptures. So there is a lot going on here, and they go back, the water go back to the source, to the water, so to speak, to the well. And we have all this strength that is hidden in this card. And you have already mentioned the ibis bird, Alison, and that is, of course, also reference to alchemy and the art of the Egyptian magic, so to speak. And that is also in here. So it's a lot of things going on with this magic of the universe, so to speak.
Indeed. So Liam, you can see that we can go on and on about this stuff, just taking it apart. And we entertain ourselves doing this kind of thing. But honestly, when you come at this, you probably don't come at it so analytically. It's probably a holistic kind of impression. You ask the question, kind of, who are we? Does anything else come to mind when you look at this card?
Well, that is so interesting. All of those little facets of this one card, all of these little symbols, it's so interesting. And I had, of course, no idea that was the water was consciousness and unconsciousness. And I just find that really fascinating. That's really interesting.
Cool.
How come, Kefri, that the number 8 with the 8 stars and the 1 + 7, how come that symbolizes strength? What is that?
Because the 8th card in the tarot, a major arcana card, we can show it, is the strength card. And that is this card.
Oh.
That's the 8th card. And we can total the 1 and the 7, and then we get to this card. So we can say that this card is in a way hidden in the star card, so to speak.
Oh,
because
wow.
you have all those stars here, actually. And there is something more here because you have all these eight arrowed star here, or 8-part star, and you have 8 of them, and 8 times 8 is 64, and that
we had a little bit of lag.
Also, yeah, we had.
You were
It's the
64.
stars. It's 8 stars. And yeah, 8 times 8 is 64. And that takes us to a chess board, actually. And the chess play can be said to be a mirror of life, actually. The mysteries of life. And so that is in here also.
Interesting.
So that is connected, yeah.
Thank you very much. And so all kinds of stuff in the tarot cards. And so those are our majors, our 22 majors. And so in addition to the 22 majors, the tarot deck is composed of 2 parts. And so you've got the major secrets and the minor secrets. And so these are 56, so quite a bit more than double the number of major cards, excuse me. And when you look at these, you can see and sense that these are the ancestors of the playing cards that we use for Las Vegas, playing poker and all that kind of stuff. We have the clubs in the wands suit on the left, and then we can see the hearts is connected to the cups, that second suit. We have the air suit, which is the swords related to the spades, and then the pentacles is related to the diamonds. What do these mean? If we look at this Kabbalistically, like from the Kabbalah or from the Tree of Life, there's this idea of the emanation from source. And I kind of think of it as like a giant champagne fountain. So if you have a champagne fountain from the divine, it kind of comes out in different levels or different worlds or different olams. There's the word for world, and the word for everybody in Hebrew is olam. And the first olam is this world of ideas and of intuition and of kind of the place that we can't really reach. We can respond to it, but we can't reach it. It comes to us. Ideas come to us. Intuition comes to us. And that's the suit of the wands. That's related to fire. And then our knight below, he's very fire, and he's often running with his notion that he got sparked with. But if you're going to take that idea and do anything with it, if it's going to come anywhere near close to reality, you're going to have to care about it. That's the suit of the cups, which is the emotional caring component. And you can see the water and the overflow in the cup, and down in the knight who is below, you can see this idea of quest, a holy grail. He's crossing the water. It's a very courtly looking card. He has the Mercury kind of wings that also implies emotional thinking and ideas. And then we get to the analytic function, which is the air suit, which is the swords. And that's quite a bit more rational. It's a lot cooler. When cooler heads must prevail, for example, or I don't know if the cooler heads are prevailing. However, with this knight down below, he's really off and running with his idea. but we start wars over ideas. So ideas can be quite powerful. And then all of these things are outside of time. They're all kind of in our head or in our heart or in our gut, somewhere, but outside of time. If something is going to come into the actual physical reality, that's represented by the pentacles. And so why is there a pentagram on the pentacle? And that's representing, again, our 5 senses. Like those 5 rivulets of water in that star card, the 5 senses are represented because our body, our consciousness, our body, our physical self is our currency in this world, literally. And we perceive it with our 5 senses. And so, and we have to operate in time. Our physical body, we have to be conceived and gestate, and it takes 9 months to be born. And then we're so delicate, and it takes years and years for us to grow up, and it takes a really long time for us to get a solid head on our shoulders. I mean, even now, I'm trying to get mine together. And although that doesn't build credibility for the show, does it? But, we are, all of us, ongoing projects and hopefully ongoing improvement projects as we bumble our way through life. And it does take a while when we're in the physical. And that's why that Knight of Pentacles down below, he is so slow. His horse isn't even moving because he's got to guard the crops. He's got to make sure that the crows don't eat the seed and that, nobody starves. And so he's a trusty guy, and trusty people have to oftentimes take time to do things, and jobs take a long time, projects take a while, all of that, etc. Let's take a look at these suits real quickly. We can see the 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, and then the 4 court cards. The wands are the suit of fire, ambition, and intuition, and spark, maybe creative project. Look at that 9 and 10. If we had to carry all of our ideas forever and ever, that would be a lot because we usually have a lot of ideas. A lot of fiery symbols in the court cards. Looking at the cups, which are the water suit. This is where you can see lots of different emotional states represented. Lots of watery symbols in the court cards. The swords are the intellect, rationality, thought, cold, surgical precision, for example. And we can really beat ourselves up with our thoughts. We can be quite cruel to ourselves and others just with words. And so this suit, when it's uninformed by the others, can be rather cold. But listen, if you need surgery, you need someone who's going to get the job done, not faint from all the blood or anything like that. And so it's important to have this faculty be strong in us as well. And we can see lots of air symbols in those court cards with the birds and the clouds and the wind and the butterflies. And finally, into the earth signs, the pentacles is the symbol or the suit of the earth, resources, responsibility, relationships, family, contracts, jobs, projects, things like that, and all of the earthy kind of symbols that are in there. So this is the kind of vocabulary of symbols that we're going to be using as we go into this reading with you, Lion, today. And we have that 7 card, the chariot, up there because we're using 7 cards in this reading. You're going to have the issue we're looking at, and you can focus us, or we could just see what happens in terms of what we're looking at for the issue in the top middle. And then we're going to have a timeline down below. And this could be something that is kind of been, what happened first and then next and next. And we'll see a trajectory. And that could be centered in the now. And we're going to be looking at what's upcoming. Or maybe this is something that has already been through that timeline. And we're now going to be getting some perspective. And we'll pick a 7th card for perspective. And then also on the top left and top right, we'll have some advice cards. There's a cautionary card to the left here. So even though this might be our default mode or something, or our most easy reaction to something, it might be best to be cautious about whatever's represented on the top left. And then on the top right, we'll have some advice, and that will be more supportive for the greater good, so to speak. And then that perspective card, we'll pull that in a little while. So that's the plan. Liam, do you have any questions or a particular issue you want to look at?
I will take the option of see what happens.
see what happens. I love it. I love how adventurous you are. I hope we have a chance to talk more after this, because it's been a while, hasn't it?
Right.
I really appreciate your coming on the show, for real. So let's
Thank
go
you,
ahead
Alison.
and have and throw the cards. And Kefri, I see that you're shuffling over there. Can I impose on you
Yeah.
to throw the cards today?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Alison. And Liam, you say stop where you want me to stop the shuffling.
Just like in Vegas.
Like
Okay,
in Vegas.
stop.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
There.
Okay.
And how many times do you want to cut the cards, if you want to cut the cards?
8.
8.
8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
They're
There
pretty
we go.
well shuffled now.
And we start. Yeah, they are. And we start with your subject card, and we will see what that is. That is the
I'm in
King
suspense.
of Wands. Yeah, that's good. The King of Wands. And then we take the past card in the timeline, and that is the Two of Wands. And your present card is the Death card, which does not mean a physical death.
I've heard that can be a good card. I'm aware of that.
Yeah, it can be. And the future card is the Nine of Wands. And the cautionary card is the Queen of Swords. Queen of Swords. And last but not least, this long, the advice card is the Eight of Pentacles. So there we have it.
Okay, interesting cards, and it's like I don't know anything about your life, and so I'm just totally gonna interpret here, because that's all we have to go on right now. So let's go ahead, Kefri, and put up that King of Wands.
Yeah.
As our significator. And so the thing that I really like about the King of Wands is that for me, he's always Mr. kind of next. You know, he's always optimistic. He goes from success to success. He doesn't look back a lot. He certainly doesn't look back with regret, because it's always about what have I learned and what can I take forward into my next project, my next success. There's a lot of dynamism in the King of Wands. And so that optimism is an important factor. You'll notice that around, and it's hard to see, I have a little tiny screen in front of me right now, but perhaps you can see that he's got this pendant, and the pendant is like a skull of a lion. He's got lions behind him and salamanders, which are all the way closed, indicating that there's a completion and a completeness about him in his character. So that he is able to go beyond his initial platform, and he's now planting his wand in his next thing, you know? And so that's where I would say you might be at this point in time. And it seems like this has been as a result of a lot of changes going through, and I do want to notice some proportions here. And so of the cards that we have up, and there's only 6 of them, we've got the one focused right now. So there's only 6 cards up, and 3 of them are wands. So whatever this is, it's kind of new, and it's about ideation and new things coming into being, and new projects coming to being, or new ideas and things like that. And it really is about inspiration and motivation. And so let's take a look. So this king is a king of motivation because he keeps himself motivated. He is someone who is able to generate enough energy to move on proudly from one thing to the next. Whether or not other people look at it that way, he is the alchemist in this way. He is the one who says, I have gotten the gold I need to out of this, and now I'm moving on. Moving on being the operative word right now. So I get the feeling that you're in some kind of transition. And then let's take a look at that Two of Wands, please, Kefri, as we take a look at the past. And in the past, in whatever this timeline that it is that we're looking at, we can see that our figure here is in a built place. He's in a place that's got some crenellations. And so there's the sense of he's got an established reality already. There's ground under him, there's property under him, and there is the seal of the purity of the white rose, of the white lily, and the passion of the red roses there. You see them in the Magician card. The red roses and white lilies are all over this tarot deck. And he's got his hand on the one wand, and it's planted there, and the other wand is even built into the building. It is that well established, and he is now looking over what is next. What is the plan? This is kind of a morning time card, and it's about what the initial plans are. In the tarot, the aces are like the seed of the beginning, but the twos are the real beginning. And so this is representing the beginning of an enterprise, the beginning of something that you are hoping will have some, perhaps even some global scope or global impact. Some business, some international business is probably involved here, or maybe it's an international kind of travel thing, but there's the idea of going beyond where you are now, but you're very established where you are now. In the present time is this Death card, and that's always a bit of an intimidating card. Kefri, let's take a look at that one, please.
Yeah.
And so from this established place and outlook, the plan got a little bit waylaid. Something came through and just could not be denied. I don't know if this is an illness or some kind of it's just, maybe it's a market reality. Maybe it's loans coming due. Maybe it's just something that has its own kind of momentum. So even though the King of Wands is Mr. Momentum and Mr. Motivation, he is not powerful enough, nor is the Pope here, nor is that king who's laid out on the ground, nor is the strength figure who's kind of like looking like this. The only one in this whole vignette who's able to handle the death figure with any kind of composure is the baby. And so there's a recommendation here to kind of just learn what you can from this. Resistance is futile, so you're just going to have to recognize the power of this phenomenon and learn what you can from it. Figure out the silver lining and figure out, last night we had someone on who has gone through some cancer treatments and diagnoses and recoveries, and she now works with other cancer patients. And her biggest powerful thing was a change in perspective. And she talked about going from why is this happening to me to why is this, what is this doing for me? So if you can manage to ask yourself the question, what is this phenomenon that I'm going through that is marching through my life? What is this going to do for me? How can I make this work for me? Then you will be very much the alchemist here in terms of taking a difficult situation and making good out of it. And that takes us to the next card in this timeline, which is the Nine of Clubs, or the Nine of Wands in this case. And even though he is a little wounded and he is a little defensive, he is still standing. He's still standing. He knows what's up. He has a lot of defensive reality and his own triumphs behind him. He's got the staff to lean on, and we remember there were a couple of them in the beginning that he had, and so he's still hanging on to that idea. It's still good. And even though he's had to go through quite a bit, he has been able to defend this. And this is now something which, and the trauma of this, shall we say, is now behind him. And he's still standing, he's still alive, and he's now wiser for this. And from the 2, has now gone all the way to the 9 in this progression. What is the recommendation then? So, and remember that both of these wands, so on either side of that crazy death thing coming through, marching through, are these wands. But who is in charge is the King of Wands. And so keep that in mind, that you are the master of this. In terms of the advice, let's take a look at the advice against, and that's the Queen of Swords. Kefri, we're going to take a look at that one. And the Queen of Swords, this is the advice against. And so let's notice a couple things about the Queen of Swords. One thing that we see about the Queen of Swords is that she's in profile. So she only sees her side of this right now. She's a very decisive person. She is you, is he, is whatever. Now, this could be, let's say this. This is a classic card of divorce or of relationship separation or of separation in general. So I wonder if whatever came through was the end of a job, end of a relationship, end of a partnership, some kind of a thing, or the threat of that. And the Queen of Swords seems to say to me here, don't finalize any big separation. Don't avoid being so decisive that you don't take into account other people's potential perspectives or their righteous needs or their viewpoints that perhaps you don't like, but are legit for them. It's important to not be one-sided and rigid. The queen holds her, she is in profile and she holds the sword very upright. The king, who represents a little bit more integrated knowledge, he has a sword that's tilted a bit and has a little bit more of the mitigating circumstances taken into account. Kefri, would you mind just showing the king as a comparison card for a moment, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want the King of Swords?
The King of Swords, just to see the difference between the King of the Queen of Swords and the King of Swords.
There we have it. There we have it.
Because the advice is not this card. The advice, or the advice against, is the other card. So this card here shows a certain maturity and taking into account of other people's viewpoints, a little bit of, not looseness, but a little bit of mercy and understanding, shall we say, that the queen is not in favor of showing. So if you are planning to be merciless, take no prisoners, screw all of them, take what you need, you know, that kind of attitude. Let's go back to that queen, please, Kefri. It would be less than productive to only march to your own drummer at this point. Or to maybe try and leave with your share only and leave the rest of it to everybody else. I think that won't really help the situation as much as the other recommendation. And here we go with an 8. Eights have been all over our session today, not necessarily the reading, but when we look at that 8 of coins, Kefri, in our pentacles in the recommendation.
Sorry, that one. Yeah. 8 of Pentacles. There we are. Sorry.
The recommendation is really to kind of get to work and just recognize that there are some times for walking away and there's other times for hanging in there. And this is one of the times for hanging in there. And you can be proud of the effort that you're putting into this. It's a continuous thing and it's worthwhile work. It's practical and it's something that you can be proud of, and it's like a trophy, so to speak, because it is your professionalism, it's your character, it's your ability to be more than you have been in the past. is this card. And the recommendation is that it's worthwhile to put in whatever this effort is, because this will help you survive the situation proudly. If you go with the Queen of Swords, you might win, but it would be kind of like a Pyrrhic victory where you're winning, but everybody else loses and you kind of lose because they lost too, and it's just not worth doing. And so it's worth sharing in the effort to make sure that everybody kind of has what they need in a way that's fair. And I think that there's just the idea of that it's worthwhile to take a hit and show that you've got the character to stick it out and show your mettle. I'm using so many kind of cliches, but that's really a lot of our language is expressed in these pictures. It's worth sticking it out. It's worth putting in the effort. It's worth taking a hit and maybe helping someone else through their difficulties, maybe shouldering a bit more than they can because they just can't, and you can. And maybe they did it for you in the past and now it's your turn. I don't know what the past has held, but there's no need to be ever petty or shitty, excuse my language, when you can be generous and kind. And I think that that's what this is recommending right now. And so I hope that this is relevant, because I know so little about what you're going through in your life. But I think that even if it takes the extra work and you're kind of like, oh God, must I do this again? It's going to be to your ultimate benefit to do it. And on the other end of this, and I'm very curious to see what Khepri has to say, it will be very worthwhile. It will indicate a mastery of self, and that's important. One thing that I didn't mention before, and just so you know, Liam, is that when I do, so Khepri and I kind of team up, because I take, I look at the cards as how they would play out in kind of the everyday life. How does it play out in how we act and what we do and how we think about things and how we feel about things? And then he's going to come in and talk about the feeling tone, and then also how does this reflect in our spiritual development. And so I'm going to hand off now to Khepri and have a chance to listen to his interpretation of these cards from that spiritual level. Might you have any questions at this point? I'm glad we're recording this because it's a bit of a fire hose.
Well, this is all really fascinating. And Khepri, when you're explaining things, I'm really curious about the fact that I have the Queen and the King on top, and they're facing each other. They're looking at each other.
Yeah.
And the wands, I think, are action. Their action. I don't understand the difference of the wands and the swords, because it's the King and Queen looking at each other, so they both come from a different perspective of wands and swords.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
And then I'm
fantastic thing you noticed, by the way. Brilliant.
And then I'm interested in the symmetry of the wands, how the King of Wands being my main card, and then there's the symmetry of the two wands in my past and my future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but all these cards are fascinating. And then I don't understand the Death card being there. That's a mystery. And the coins seem to be the key to it all, the recommendation. That seems to be the real key. So those are the things that, I have questions about all that.
Yeah. I will try to answer some of it, I think, in my interpretation. And thank you for your questions, and thank you, Alison. My interpretation will be a little bit different than yours here, Alison, because I can see something that is going on. It could be a project that you are involved with a team or something. It's something here. And the King of Wands, that is a side of you, I think, that wants to reach out with what you have to share in this field, actually. And also it is like you are obliged to work in this team or with this team, but like you are feeling you are doing a better work yourself, actually, because you know how this should be done, actually. And the balancing mechanisms is your power in this project, I would say. And you will succeed in getting out, because if you're looking at the king, he has the wand outside of his fundament that he is sitting on, actually. And it's also uh, for that in this situation, and that is understanding. And I think you are a very understanding person, but still you have to take a lead in this thing. You have to do what you feel is needed in this thing. That's one thing of this card. And the queen, I think, because the wands are more representing your intuition, and the swords are more representing the thought, the mind, and everything, the cackling that can be inside, or the monkey mind, or what you want to call it or prefer to call it. But it's like the other people here involved is wanting to wait for a situation when it feels right, when it is faithful to act, or what we should say. But you feel that it's better to start doing things now, actually, because this waiting for something that perhaps is the right thing is not right to do. That is something here. But if we go to this timeline here, I think that the Two of Wands here is going back to the years we have had with the pandemic and everything. And I think that you have been able to see what should be done here, actually. And this card, as you see, he holds the world in his hand, so to speak, in a mini version, in a globe there. And I think that is what you have been able to succeed in doing, accepting this hard situation and see what can be done from it, and looking from it from a perspective above, because Alison has already been he is placed in a higher position here in what it is, a castle tower, or what it is he is standing on. And I think that has been your ability in this crisis, actually. And I'm also thinking that others have thought these situations to be hardly possible to manage, actually, but you have gotten power in it, actually, feeling that now we should do this way, now it should be this way, and the situation is like that, and so on and so on. The Death card, that usually has to do with some form of changes or something, but I would again connect that to a pandemic situation where there was a lot of death. And I would place you on the horse, actually, like that rider on the horse, or that knight, because you was able to produce and be creative during this period, I think. And I also think that others was falling down in anxiety or in hopelessness and everything that is connected to this card, actually, if you look at the figures here. And then you have the sun going up between the two towers here. So you have always known during this situation that something will be, it's like this will pass too, and it will come something else afterwards, and we can't just stop here. And this can also have to do with resources of food or something that, because you can see he's holding a flag, this figure with sort of a wheat, don't know what it is here, but it's like your faith in this, that the world would survive this as well as everything else that the world has survived, is a sort of your strength in this. Actually, we had a lot of eights that Alison was referring to also. And then we have this card, and this is the future. And I think that you are coming out of it with some bruises, and some bruises because the team has not been agreeing all the time here, I think. But you will be the winner in this. And it will be a sort of a balancing between letting it grow and be both offensive and defensive at the same time. And that's important here, and you will succeed in that, actually. And also the advice, as I see it here, is to work alone when you feel that you should work alone, because you have the ability to bring in the balance in this situation. And the team could be a problematic thing here because they have different opinions on everything, and they don't come to a solution to be creative and producing something. And I think it's you on the bench here, actually. And you don't see this, but the color settings in this card is exactly what is referred to in the card underneath, so to speak, that if we look at it Kabbalistically in a deeper way. So I see again that you are able to balance this between let it grow and be both offensive and defensive to go forward here. And also to be protective of the project here and say that, no, we must do that now. It's no alternatives. We must do this. And at the same time, we must think about, we can't just lay it down. It must grow. It must live. This is a living project. And that is the advice here, actually, to listen to yourself and to go on producing things, actually. And the Queen of Swords, I see more that is the team that want to wait on the right occasion, actually, and like it would come a spiritual message or an intuitive message to the mind or something. And you don't need that. You need to act, actually, in a sort of a splendor of acting. And in the future, you will succeed in building a base to work from, actually, that it will be solid. And with that, we will take the 7th card. And that is interesting because it is the 3 of Swords, actually. And that is quite interesting here. So that's...
This card is not the most pleasant card to look at, of course.
That looks scary.
It does. But what's interesting about this card is it follows on the 2. And the 2 is a card in the 2 of Swords. It's someone who's got the swords crossed over their chest and they're blindfolded. And it's the idea that at the beginning of a project, sometimes you don't know enough to be able to make a decision. And so oftentimes anyone waits until the time is right, or there's a need to hesitate until you know enough. But when you do know enough to take the next step, to go from the 2 to the 3, necessarily the 3 involves making a choice. And so if you are there are 2 ways to go, and you have to then make a decision. If you're going to take the one way, it takes that other way out of commission. And so it's making a decision necessarily involves eliminating something. And that's one of the difficulties of the 3. But as you take something through the different stages of development, those are the difficult choices that have to be made. And so the Queen of Swords is a particular decision that's not being recommended, but a decision in general is kind of the flavor of this reading. And the overall flavor of this reading is the need to make a decision that involves work, that involves moving forward, that involves not waiting or not delaying any longer. And it can be it's emotional to make these decisions, but this card looks more difficult than it is. It just it depicts the challenge of having to make a fork in the road kind of decision. And when that fork in the road comes, you necessarily can't take the other one. It no longer is an option. And that can represent loss. And so if there is loss to be felt in here, that may be why that figure in the 9 of Wands is looking kind of wounded, is because he's having to make these kinds of choices. And leaders have to do that. And it can't be easy all the time. And so this reading is depicting a time of a lot of change, innovation, and work with promise, but not without difficulty. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing here. Kefri, what do you see in this card?
I will read it in a bit of a different way than you, Alison, this time also. I think it's time to release, to draw out the swords of the heart, to stop this sorrow period that is the traumas from the pandemic, I would say, or what has going on. And it's time once and for all to draw those swords out, because then that heart will heal. But that will also be causing an unbalance against the team again, because I think this is about that. If you say that now it's time to go forward, now it's time to forget what has been, then nobody can be still in old catastrophic thoughts, actually. And it's time to release this, and also take this, that the healed heart will lose the balance initially. Because if you see this, it makes a great stand for that heart, but it is a heart that has been pierced through. So if you draw out all those swords, the 3 swords, the heart will not stand, it will fall, but it will heal, actually, because the swords are gone. And I think it's connected to the death card also, your role in this to imply a sort of a new fate in a future of this. And I get the feeling that this can have to do with food, actually, in a way, because we have the death card with that grain, or what it is, a flower of a grain or something. And also the death card is standing for a fish also, the symbol of it. So I get some peculiar feeling with relations to things that is possible to eat, actually. I don't know why I get it, but I get it. And I think I stopped there. Thank you.
Well, this has been an interesting reading that's kind of depicting some challenges. I hope this has been relevant for you, because this is basically what the tarot flow is, Liam. So if you want to share anything, that's wonderful. If it's, I'm hoping that these things have been worth considering. And I'm hoping they're relevant.
Yeah, I mean it's an amazing, it's a whole story right there. It's an amazing story. I'm interested, I have a question. The heart, just what does the heart represent just by itself? And also why three? Why the number
Uh,
three?
yeah, that card is connected. I didn't say that, but that card is connected to understanding. The second card, the two of wands here, is connected to wisdom. So this is the release of the wisdom, so to say, because it comes as an understanding. And in this case, I think it is an understanding that is needed for the situation to heal the situation, so to speak. So that is, and those cards are also connected to the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life, and the three in the Kabbalistic tree of life is also the planet Saturn, and that could be a very hard planet. It could be a lot of discipline and everything, but it's also creating a sort of a deeper understanding, actually. So that is also the connection to the three, so to speak, to the third energy point in the tree of life. So that is also there. This card is also connected to a lot of feminine energy, actually, also, if we look at it deeper.
And the heart? What is
No,
the heart?
as a tree, actually, as a three. The heart is the emotion, I would say. It's the emotion, and also in this card, it is a depiction of a tree of life, actually, and the spot you don't see behind the heart is the balancing spot that is called the beauty spot, and that is also the spot where we have the Christus light and so on. So that is in here too. So the heart is, I would say, emotion, and it could also be feminine energies that is connected to emotion also. So I don't know, Alison, if you have a take on it also.
Well, I appreciated the way you said it's kind of time to stop killing yourself over this thing. Is there a way to do this in a way that's not so hurtful? Or is there a way to do this in a way that's less harsh or more a softer way to approach it, instead of kind of saying these are the rules and this is the way it has to be done, and this and instead of kind of coming at it in a way that is very dire? Is there a way to approach this in such a way that you can do what you need to do and other people can do what they need to do, and everybody can play to their strengths without having to hurt each other in the process? If there's a way to get at that, if there's a way to stop wounding each other and just get the work done, I think that that would be more productive than fighting over principles or over stuff that is already bygone, and or stuff that is, yeah, it might be true, but is it necessarily kind? And what are those criteria? It's like, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? You don't have to be honest about absolutely everything. Some things are better just left unsaid or left alone, because we've all had our foibles and nobody likes to have them pointed out. And just, if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, and you can decide that it doesn't matter. And how much do you want to hang on to old resentments? I've been hanging on to too many old resentments lately, and it's been making me feel right, but it hasn't certainly been made me happy. And it's made me wound somebody in a way that I'm not proud of at this point. And so then it brings in my own shame. And so it's kind of a negative spiral in that way. And so how quickly can we exit the negative spiral?
Yeah, I can relate. I can relate to all that you're saying there. I definitely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the heart.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I mean it shows up as the seventh card.
Mm-hmm.
And the significance of the seventh card is, because I know, there's past, present, future.
It's just some
recommendation?
added perspective on this. It's time,
Oh.
so overall, what's the influence? Overall, it would be helpful to move past the wounding phase and move into something more productive.
It's over all
Yeah.
all the other cards. That's why it's bigger and
It's
picked afterwards.
it's kind of one of the facets of our interface. So it's a focus position, and then we've also kind of used it as a 7th card position rather than just a 6-card reading. It just gives us some additional perspective. It's not overweighted. I mean, it shouldn't be weighted more heavily, except that it kind of gives us an umbrella to consider that it may be time to stop harping so much on principles and consider more the people.
Wow, that's great. That's well said.
This also being caught up in this card, in this negative energy space, so to speak, is like trying to be emotional and being too emotional, and then the thought comes and take away the emotional stage, actually, and there is a lot of conflict in the thoughts, and then suddenly it's a form of a blackout in the thought, and then it goes over and over again. And that is why the sword should be drawn out of the heart, so you can heal the emotional energies and leave out the thoughts, actually.
Yeah, there may be
Yes,
arguments that are just old at this point.
Yeah. And the sorrow that could be.
It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It really doesn't.
No.
Some people enjoy being right more than they enjoy being happy. It's time to be happy instead of being right. Because being happy is being right.
That's true. That is so true. And it's interesting that those are the 3 swords, and then I have the Queen of Swords. And again, the Queen of Swords is facing that card.
Yeah.
Indeed. I appreciate very much, Liam, the way you're taking into account aspects of the illustration, because I hadn't really seen how that king and queen are kind of facing off. And I wonder if that's actually representing some people in your life or some points of view, and this kind of constant standoff of, my idea versus your point.
I see the cards are so visual and tell such a story, but then when you put them in their place, they tell a more comprehensive story because they're interacting with each other at that point.
Yeah.
So that is really fascinating.
Well said, indeed. So this is the tarot flow. You're very much welcome to come back as often as you would like to subject yourself to this again, or just to see how things shift over time. And then one thing that we really enjoy doing is to gift our guests with a book and a card set. So if you want to leave us your address, then we can send that your way, and then you can kind of play around. And if you join us again, you can throw the cards and we'll put them up and we can read them together.
Oh, wow. I'll read your guys'
Yeah,
cards.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you are doing such a good job already of it in noticing these details and in noticing how the dynamic of this whole thing works. Absolutely. Brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliant.
God.
You were always a
Really?
smart kid.
Well, yeah, I guess we all were, right? We all were little smart kids back then.
Little smarty pants. So if you would, again, the recommendation here is that it might be good to give up on the need to be right, just to experience the need to be, experience the more harmony. And then do what makes you happy, and avoid as much as possible tangling on issues that are just going to put you back into an old loop. And if you recognize that it's an old loop, you can say, that's an old loop. I'm going to exit that loop for now and just walk in the other room or do something like that. It can be helpful.
Yeah. Oh,
So we may
lost
have
Liam.
had a bit of a glitch on the internet there with Liam. I'm sure he'll
Yeah.
join us in a moment. And this is something that it's an interesting and challenging reading. There he is.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh, some little internet glitch. So, just kind of when you feel that loop coming around again, when you know that that's the argument that's going to happen again, or, this issue is coming up, just say, I'm exiting this loop. I'm exiting this loop. I am withdrawing that sword. This is not the sword I'm going to die on.
Right. Or the 3 swords I want to die on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What is the point of killing yourself over these silly ideas? And then in 10 years, is this going to matter? In a year, is this going to matter? In a month, is this going to really matter? Why has it mattered all this time? And then or is there something attached to this issue that you could figure out what that something is and deal with that thing so that you don't have to constantly be harping on this situation and hurting each other or whatever the wound is that keeps getting picked at.
It's in the box that's not recommended there.
Yeah.
It's not recommended to do that.
Well said.
No.
Well said indeed.
No.
And the king and queen are having a face-off there.
Yeah, and let's have the king win this time.
A sword. It's a sword versus a staff too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't stop. I just can't stop looking at this thing. It's a sword versus staff. The king has the staff, and the queen has the sword. And what's that about?
Yeah.
Well,
and the king expresses what he feels, but the queen doesn't. She acts actually upon what she feels, but she don't tell the king.
So I don't know if this is 2 people that we're talking about here, because you've been a little cagey in terms of you've asked questions, but you're not coming out with too much information.
That's right.
You don't get any payoff. But that's okay, because the payoff is your consideration and your depth of looking at this. You're looking at this with a lot of attention and a lot of really good questions. So if this queen is your mind and the king is your greater wisdom, then let the king win this one. Just give up the idea for a minute and let your intuition carry the day and let your optimism carry the day, and avoid the pessimism that would say this doesn't pencil out, it's not going to be okay, we shouldn't move forward, we should bail, whatever that kind of thinking is. Let there be more optimism in this so that you're not constantly hurting yourself, arguing with yourself over something that you ultimately really want to do anyway.
And
Do it.
you or Kefri used the term monkey mind for Queen of Swords.
Yeah.
And I do yoga. I do a lot of yoga, and that is not recommended. That is something that you try to maybe work all your life to get rid of that monkey mind or the logical mind or the mind that keeps running in a loop or negativity. And the King of Wands seems to, from what you're saying, seems to be more to go to a place of wisdom or intuition or understanding or something like that.
Yeah.
And then just
actually
dynamism. Move on.
Yeah.
Give up put that idea in the past. Get a new idea.
Yeah.
And actually that king is also in a spot of wisdom, actually. So you are so right, Lion.
That middle spot, is the spot of, what would you call it?
No, it's in the, if you look at it Kabbalistically, it's a spot of wisdom, actually.
Oh, wow.
So that's
Okay.
Let's
so
go
you
ahead and put
said
up
it.
that tree of life if you don't mind,
Yeah,
Jeffrey. Can
yeah,
you put that?
yeah. We can do that.
The idea here, Liam, is that the 1 through 10 is depicted kind of, okay, so we can see here, this is a wacky diagram here, but you can see the 1, the 2, 3.
That's a flow chart. Looks like what I have to do today.
Yeah. Exactly. And so when he was talking about so let's see where our death card is here in this thing.
That card is here. There it
Between the
is.
6 and the 7. So each of the pathways between these spheres on the tree of life, and let's say this is the big champagne fountain I was talking about before. And so if the 1 is the unknowable deity that where things are coming forth, it kind of flows down, and we're way down in the 10. That's where we're hanging out. And so the King of Wands that we were talking about, where would he live? If we were going to point him out, Kefri, on this tree of life, where is the King of Wands?
Here he would live. And here the 2 of Wands lives also, so they are both wisdom, but different forms of wisdom. And
And then our queen?
The queen is living in the 3. And that is also understanding. But the queen,
they seem to be on the same level. Does that tree have
they are.
Does it have a meaning
They
of
are.
the top and the bottom?
It could have, but they are on the same level here, and it is a higher level actually, because
And they
there
look
is
directly connected. They have a line directly between the 2 of them.
Yeah. And that's a door, that line. So that's an opening of something new, actually.
Oh, it's a door. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see it says door on there.
It's
on that
door
line.
to something new, so to speak.
Wow.
And
The door is the Empress card, and each of the major arcana have a Hebrew letter attached to them, and that Hebrew letter also has a meaning to it. And so that Empress card, who is connecting the 2 and the 3, her letter means door. And so when we talk about that door, and we could also say that there may be a way for you to talk to or go through that door to communicate more effectively with that queen, so that rather than being constantly battling each other, maybe there's a way for you to find a way to talk to each other, so to speak, or for you to find a way to talk to your own mind, or to let your mind have something, but not all of you, you know? It shouldn't dominate at this point, because the king needs to win out in this one. The wisdom of the king, and the king is also on the side of the 4. See that 4?
Yeah.
The blue 4 is representing mercy, and the red 5 and that black 3 are representing harshness and severity. And so that Queen of Swords is very harsh, severe, stark, taking no prisoners. And you really want to kind of stay more with the energy of mercy, love, new energy, and stuff that's more represented by that.
And that could all be in 2 sides of my own mind.
Absolutely. All of this.
I have both, it's 2 sides of
100%.
Representing 2 sides of thinking there.
Yeah. And actually the 3 also, the number 3, the 3 of Swords is in the exactly same spot that's the Queen of Swords, actually.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so it is a real face-off. Boy, you picked it. It is a face-off between your kind of heart and mind, so to speak.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because we have the king here, and here we also have the 2 of Wands, and we have the queen here, and there we also have the 3 of Swords. So that's also.
Yeah, maybe I have a battle going on, and what I need to do is do the work.
Yeah.
There's the work over on the next to them, next to both of them.
Yeah.
And then give yourself a break. It's that nine of wands there, you will have fought for your solid position, shall we say. As you go through this battle of the rulers of your mind, your logical ruleress in this queen, and your more heart-driven, intuition-driven king on the right, your kind of human body and your heart is paying the price in that nine of wands character coming up. But it's gosh, I was just saying, it's like a death battle with that death card coming through.
You said the wands, the nine of wands. You said he was wounded.
Well, he's still standing. He's been
still
through.
Standing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's strong. It's the wounded warrior. Is that card?
Uh-huh.
He will come out of this situation actually wounded, so to speak.
He is a survivor. He's still standing.
Survivor.
Yeah. And the 8 up there, the 8 of coins is down in this spot, and the keyword here is communication actually. So it's work and communication, we can say.
Yeah. Communication, so important.
Yeah.
So important.
I hope you'll come back and do this again with us.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're blowing my mind, you know.
Well, it looks like you have a really solid mind, and your mind has been, it's been having a tennis match with you lately. I would say, going back and forth. And good for you for surviving. And you're a strong man. I can see that in all of these things. And it also takes a strong person to sit back and ask the kind of questions you're asking, because most people are way too defensive to do anything like that. And so the fact that you're willing to examine yourself in this way speaks very highly of who you are and who you have become in terms of your character.
I think that it seems to me that's part of the point of doing this.
Indeed.
It feels like that is the point. If you're defensive and you're not trying to understand that and apply it to yourself, you're not getting what you can out of this.
Indeed. Well said again.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Malkan, you're so smart. I just love it.
Thank you guys so much for this. That was a real treat.
You're welcome.
This is cool. So listen, for anybody who is watching this and who has gotten this far, if you've gotten this far, you have a wonderful attention span. Everybody, congratulations. What words of wisdom, what has been helpful for you as you've gone through your life? What has been helpful for you to keep such a solid mind and to stay so aware? What has been helpful for you? If somebody said, "Hey, Liam, give me some good advice," what would you tell them?
Have your tarot cards read, of course. And don't be defensive. Stop being defensive.
And you got a great sense of humor. I love it. I do indeed. It's been a pleasure, Mr. Malkan. I appreciate you being here. Stick around for a moment because we're going to need to just make sure our local recordings are all solid. But I'm going to take us off camera right now, and we'll get your address and send you some book and card action. And Liam Malkan, thank you for being with us. Kefri Scarabus, thank you for being with us on the Tarot Flow Show. And we'll see you all soon.